Assalamu alaikum students. Today we are going to have uh, another lecture on politics and the English language. And in this part, we are going to talk about Orwell's six rules for good writing. Let's start it. At the end of the politics and the English language, basically it is the last part of the essay. What Orwell does, Orwell moves from criticism to solution. It is a good thing that, okay, he has criticized politics and the English language and politics and the language connection, but he has not finished his lecture on criticism. Rather, he has also given a solution. Let's see what it is. After identifying the major faults in modern English, Orwell proposes six practical rules which are designed to improve writing, and he encourages clear thinking with the help of these rules. These rules are not merely stylistic guidelines, they are ethical principles which are intended to protect language from dishonesty and manipulation. Let's talk about these six rules one by one. Rule one: never use a metaphor, simile, or other figure of speech which are used to sing in print. What does it mean? Orwell advises writers to avoid cliches and worn out metaphors. A metaphor should create a fresh image in the reader's mind. However, repeated use destroys its effectiveness. Examples are toe the line, ring the changes, ride roughed over. Such expressions become automatic habits rather than meaningful choices. According to Orwell, writers often use these phrases without thinking. Consequently, language becomes mechanical and lifeless. So, what is the purpose of this first rule? What we can get? Number one, to encourage originality. Why he uses this rule? Number one is that he wants to encourage originality. Number two, he wants to force writers to think independently. And number three, he wants to prevent lazy writing. If you see what themes are used or connected here in rule number one, we can say number one is language of thought. Fresh language encourages fresh thinking. Then intellectual responsibility is another theme that is used here. Writers should consciously choose their words rather than rely on ready-made expressions. Then let's talk about rule two. Never use a long word where a short one will do. That is one word substitution in general concept. Orwell criticizes the tendency to use complex vocabulary merely to sound educated, to sound hi-fi. Instead of using help, writers say render resistance. Instead of using using the word use, they write utilize. Long words often create distance between writer and reader. Choose familiar words, common words, and short words. They, the common man can understand it. The common audience can understand it. Orwell believes effective communication depends on simplicity rather than verbal display. So the rule of a second, sorry, the purpose of second rule is to, number one, improve clarity. Number two, to make writing accessible. And number three, to eliminate pretentious diction that we have discussed in previous lectures. Here, clarity and precision is one of the connected themes. Simple language communicates ideas more effectively as compared to difficult language that communicates ideas ineffectively. Then we have truth versus deception. These are two consonant rivals. They always are found in contrast. Complicated vocabulary can conceal weak thinking. So rule 3 is, if it is possible to cut a word out, always cut it out. It is talking about, this rule is also talking about conciseness, about going against verbosity. So Orwell values brevity, that is another name for clarity, so for conciseness. Every unnecessary word weakens our sentence. Instead of saying in the event that, it's better to say if, owing to the fact that, you'd better say because. Wordiness often hides confusion. Always remember, a concise sentence forces the writer to express ideas precisely. So, what is the purpose of rule 3? Three purposes. Number one, to improve efficiency. Number two, to remove clutter. And number three, to increase clarity. What themes are used here? Number one is precision. Good writing uses only necessary words. So it is the quality of precision that you use the fewest possible words to convey your message effectively. Then another theme is intellectual discipline. Always remember, concise writing reflects disciplined thinking. Concise writing can never be based on random ideas. It cannot be random. It will always be disciplined. It will always be focused. Rule 4 is never use the passive where you can use the active. Orwell strongly prefers active voice because it clearly identifies responsibility, who is doing the action. And if you are doing certain action, you have to take the responsibility of that. Mistakes were made, instead of saying the government made mistakes. But it is debatable. We can debate on it, especially when you talk about, when you use business language. It is debatable. Okay, fine. Active is the first choice, but in certain conditions, certain situations, passive can also be preferred. So it is debatable. The passive voice often removes the agent responsible for an action. This is particularly important in political language because politicians frequently use passive constructions to avoid accountability. So the purpose of Rule 4 is to promote clarity, to identify responsibility, and to reduce ambiguity. Themes. First one is truth versus deception. Active voice makes responsibility visible, and passive voice, what it does, it hides the responsibility. So it hides the truth too, and it can lead to deception. Then political mani- political manipulation is another theme that is covered in Rule 4, that is passive constructions often conceal guilty or accountability. Now move towards Rule 5. Never use a foreign phrase, a scientific word, or a jargon word if you can think of an everyday English equivalent. Orwell argues that specialized language should only be used when absolutely necessary. Many writers use jargon because it sounds authoritative or intellectual. Instead of saying ameliorate, you should better use improve. Instead of using utilize, you'd better say use. Instead of saying abstruse, you'd better say unclear. So, jargon frequently excludes ordinary readers and weakens communication. That is the problem with jargon. Yes, if you are using with the technical people, then it's fine, but with common people, it is not recommended. So, Rule 5 has three purposes. Number one, to encourage accessibility. Number two, to promote democratic communication. And number three, to eliminate unnecessary complexity. And if you see themes here, language and power, how they are connected. Specialized language can create barriers between experts and ordinary people. Then clarity is another theme. Communication should be understandable. It should not be difficult. It should not be just for showing off, but it should be for clarity. It should be for making things understandable. It, the word should clear understanding, create understanding. Rule 6, if you see, uh, break any of these rules sooner than they say anything outright barbarous. The final rule is extremely important because it prevents Orwell's advice from becoming rigid dogma. He acknowledges that language is flexible and creative. Sometimes a writer may need to violate one of the previous 5 rules in order to communicate effectively. So it is not hard and fast. Wherever you find that you can break the rule, you should. The ultimate goal is not blind obedience, but clear communication, whatever it is required. For example, sometimes we usually say that you have to be specific, but there are certain situations where you should not be very specific because it can create problem for audience, for decision makers, even for general public. So, purpose of Rule 6 is to encourage flexibility, to prevent mechanical rule following. And the last one is to prioritize meaning over formula. And if you see communications here, these are intellectual freedom. Good writing requires judgment rather than a strict obedience. And there's another theme, that is communication. Rules exist to serve language, not to control it. And now let me talk about Orwell's 6 rules for good writing, and let me critically analyze this part. Orwell's 6 rules represent the practical culmination of politics and the English language. After diagnosing the problems of modern English, cliches, pretentious diction, jargon, and political euphemism, He offers these rules as a remedy, these six rules, a solution to these problems. They are significant because they move beyond linguistic criticism and become a program for intellectual honesty. Orwell believes that clear writing promotes clear thinking, while vague and inflated language encourages confusion and manipulation. One of the greatest strengths of the rules is their emphasis on clarity and simplicity. Orwell rejects the idea that good writing must be complicated. It is not correct. His advice encourages writers to communicate directly and efficiently. Rules such as avoiding long words, eliminating unnecessary expressions, and preferring active voice make writing more accessible to ordinary readers. In this sense, Orwell democratize, demo, brings democracy to language by arguing that effective communication should not be restricted to educated elites. The rules also have an important ethical dimension. Orwell is not merely concerned with style, he is concerned with truth. Rule 4, especially, which favors active voice over passive voice, is particularly significant because it exposes responsibility. A statement mistakes are made hides the person responsible, whereas the government made mistakes identifies the agent clearly. Orwell recognizes that political language often uses passive constructions and euphemisms to avoid accountability that is not fair. Thus, his rules become a defense against political deception. Another strength of the rules is their connection to independent thinking. These rules favor independent thinking. These rules favor creativity. Orwell believes that cliches and ready made phrases discourage originality. When writers rely on familiar expressions, they stop thinking critically about what they are saying. By urging writers to avoid worn out metaphors and stock phrases, Orwell seeks to restore creativity and intellectual independence. His rules, therefore, promote both linguistic and mental discipline. I hope you have understood this part, Orwell's Six Rules for Good Writing. If you have still certain questions in your mind, you can inbox me, you can ask me freely. Your questions will be appreciated. Thank you for watching.